What's up, gamers? I'm back, and we are just under 3 weeks away from the return of the United Championship Series, which is pretty woo, if you ask me. I mean, I would say that's pretty woo. So there's a lot to look forward to, and everything's going to be very different. I think they made a lot of good changes in the offseason. We have a lot to look forward to. I'm going to talk about the changes, what's going to be better, and what we can expect. So hope you enjoy, and be sure to smash that subscribe button and come back for more videos. Now, like I said, we have a lot to be excited for UCS 2023. So we've got a lot of returning teams, including last year's undefeated champions who are now known as Ascendants. They stayed together in the offseason. They've been grinding lately, so I'm very excited to see them come February when the first tournament starts. Along with that, Nouns 100% stayed together. They've been dominating tournaments, especially recently in the offseason. I mean, these guys are gamers, dog. If there's any tournament, they just want to be in it. So they've had tons of practice in the offseason, and they've been pioneering a lot of new builds with the draft pick format, which we'll talk about more later. Along with the two returning teams, first and second worlds last year, we have Radiance, who's been dominating the NA scene and really been showing out lately. Radiance went from a team that either didn't play last year, or maybe they just totally slipped by everybody's minds, and by everybody I mean me, and they've come out as one of the best out of North America in the last couple months. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what they can do in the first open qualifier. And then the last high profile team out of NA is we have TTV, a little bit different than last season, but they're back, which is relevant because they were the team with the highest championship points last season. They didn't make it to Worlds, but out of North America, they had the single highest championship points among all 5 of their members, which shows just how consistent and how strong of players they are. And they have a lot of expectations upon their shoulders for UCS 2023, especially with the change format, which they're expected to do well in. Now, what is this format? So, thank goodness the United Championship Series got an overhaul for the qualifying format. Last season, as we look at these standings, TTV and Full Send went into regionals with the most CP of their teams. Now, Full Send had the top 4, but their 5th player made them so they weren't the highest team overall, which was then given to TTV. Which really all this means is that these two teams qualified for the regional championships. They were consistent all season long, gaining big points, winning big tournaments, and all it did for them was qualify for the qualifiers for Worlds, which seems a little bit weird, and I don't really think anybody liked it. And we all know the outcome of this. Neither of these teams qualified for the World Championship points. The two highest championship point teams in North America, consistent all season long, pioneering things like Full Send's full flip comp that won AOS Cup, and TTV just being dominant from the release of Pokemon Unite. It really just made the whole competitive season feel kind of pointless, right? Every tournament up until this point is let's get these points to qualify for a qualifier. Like, yeah, sure, there was money in the monthly finals, but really everybody's goal is the World Championships. That's what it's really about. Those championship points really were kind of pointless. All you had to do was win the previous monthly tournament, and congratulations, now you're in regionals. So really, it was qualifying for a qualifier, which anybody could have done, even if you just picked it up that much, which really felt bad. Now, let's talk about the new format. This new format for the World Championships has 2 different ways to qualify, and this is what TTV and Full Send are going to be so disappointed wasn't in there last year, but I'm sure everybody's going to be happy to see this year. Makes it feel a lot like a real esport. So, the teams with the most CP within their regional zone at the end of each qualification season will earn an invite to Worlds. So this is big, especially in NA, who now gets 4 slots rather than 2 along with Europe. The 2 dominant regions doubled their slots from last year, which is huge. And additionally, the team that wins the regional finals in each region will earn an invite to Worlds. So here's what I like about this. So now the teams with the most CP qualify. So if this is in last year, you have Full Send, you have TTV in the World Championships. The teams that battled all through the entire season, winning tournament after tournament, placing high every single month. Now it matters. These CP are absolutely huge. They matter. They don't only qualify you for the regional championships. Now they qualify you for Worlds, which is a really big deal. The whole season matters now, straight from the first tournament in February. Now, there's also a slot for the team that wins regionals. And I know it seems like I didn't like the regional qualifier being the ones to go to Worlds, the winners from last year. But I think this is the actually perfect way to do it, okay? So you have the teams that are going to be consistent, and then the regional finals team can be an at-large team. So maybe the most consistent team will win, maybe they won't. But if a new team pops up at regionals and they show they're the best and they come and they just lay a smacking on everybody, absolutely there should be a spot for them. And that's a big deal with the slots opening from 2 to 4 this year. Now you have that extra slot that's an at-large team, which could really make a difference and really make a deep run. If maybe it took a team just a little bit longer to get that synergy. They're high-level players. It took them a little bit longer to come together, but they do it at the right time. And of course, the time that matters would be the regional championships. This would be like any traditional sport. You know, teams go on hot streaks. They get in shape at the perfect time. They peak just right. So if we have an at-large team peak at the end of the regional qualifier, that would be a great storyline going into Worlds. And then you have your consistent teams that just qualified based off of CP through the whole season. So what's interesting is the CP is retained by players, which can make an interesting last-minute switch in order to qualify for Worlds. So what we saw last year was TOS made a last-minute switch to go into the regional finals, and they ended up getting top 4 in A. So they added, I believe it was Faz. So they added a player that then bumped him up and auto-qualified him for the finals at regionals, and then they end up placing top 4, which was really, really big. They didn't have to play in the first week of the tournament. And this opens up a lot of interesting capabilities as far as qualifying for Worlds. So if you have 4 players who are up there, but not quite, and for whatever reason, maybe something goes wrong with the top team that's just barely above, and they're able to snag one of those players, now they can bump their team up into qualifying for Worlds based off of CP. So I think it's really interesting. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because the teams are so fluid and they're always changing. So it makes a lot of sense that each player retains their own points. But I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to turn out and if we're going to have any teams like that. Like a group of 4 players who weren't going to make it, but they're able to snag one that then bumps them up just enough to qualify for Worlds. I'm not sure we'll have that, but it's a possibility. Now, the next biggest thing, and really honestly the most impactful for the majority of the people, is the gameplay about Worlds at 2023. So obviously the majority of people, the vast majority of Pokemon Unite fan base is not going to be at Worlds. So this next change is going to drastically change how we enjoy the tournament, how we watch it, and how it plays out. And that is draft pick. One of the biggest complaints about last season was that every team was just kind of Hoopa, Blissey, Mirror, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's playing the same character. There's not a lot of variety, right? You don't see counter picks or anything like that, or any interesting strategies. Everybody did the exact same thing, which was honestly, it got a little bit old. Yes, the players are very, very high level, fun to watch, but it's the ideas that could have been so much better, right? And draft pick, I think, does that. So the broken and unfun mons are going to get banned because nobody wants to deal with them, right? And this is going to shed light on other characters and see the less popular mons really have a chance to shine. And I think really, if we look at the Float Zone Invitational, is a perfect example of this. So tournaments are starting to do draft pick. And of course, Shifu and I think Sableye got banned because Urshifu is turbo broken and absolutely unfun to play against, and Sableye is also the same way, broken in a different way. So they got banned, and we saw Nouns pick Clefable, one of the lowest pick rates and the lowest win rates in the game right now as far as ranked mode goes. And I know there's a difference between ranked mode and competitive 5 stacks, but it's just a Pokemon that everybody thinks is really, really bad, and Nouns had great success with it. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what Pokemon teams are able to just kind of pull up that nobody really expected. Another thing that this is going to do for spectators to raise enjoyment is there's no mirror match. At Worlds, 62% of teams had a Hoopa and 72% of teams had a Blissey, which is just Hoopa, Blissey mirror match every time. It's kind of It got old seeing the same thing over and over again. Draft pick is really going to spice that up a little bit. It's going to make the spectating experience a lot more fun. And as far as a player, it's going to make it a lot harder. You have to learn every character very, very effectively rather than just being a master at one. This will make it a lot of fun. And now, outside of just the gameplay and the draft pick, we have the new Pokemon and the new map. So a lot has changed since UCS 2022. We have an entirely new map. And it's been about a year. It's been, you know, since August, several months. So there has been a lot of changes in this new map that are honestly kind of making it look a little bit like Remote Stadium again, where you play for the bottom objective. But we have a much stronger Rotom up top and Regieleki. And we have 3 different buffs you can spawn at the bottom lane. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Reggie still being the strongest, and they're going to want to prioritize that every time. It'll be interesting to see if there's ever times when a different objective is chosen, because let's say a Reggie spawns and, oh, we're not interested in that, we want to go top and try to push an advantage there. Whereas last season it was Dreadnought every single time. So I think these buffs that are being a little bit different could open up the gameplay a little bit. I still think it's going to be played through bottom lane a lot, but there'll be a little bit variation, at least in the buffs that are gained. And another thing in the gameplay is the jungling is entirely different. Invading was so rare in UCS 2022 because the buff spawned so close to your home base. There was no way for invaders to get in and out safely. Now they switched the way the buffs and the Baltoys spawn compared to the buffs and the crabs used to spawn. And now invading is so easy. Playing a jungler is no longer safe anymore. You don't just get those guaranteed levels. You could always have somebody else from the enemy team in your jungle, especially if they have a Sableye. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And another thing is, obviously, instead of Zapdos, now we have Rayquaza. So Rayquaza is obviously very, very strong right now, especially after its most recent buff. It's very rippable, very flippable. So I'm very curious to see if there's a flip comp that comes out. We will see. But it's also very counterable, especially in coordinated 5 stacks. There are ways to counter the Rayquaza shields once you've lost the objective. For example, T-Tar and Urshifu both have true damage. You can't score even if you have a shield on those characters. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It's certainly not as strong as Zapdos was, and there are ways to play around it. So I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, different each match, new Pokemon being used, new strategies from last year, and I'm very excited about it. And honestly, February 4th can't get here fast enough for the first open qualifier. Let me know what you guys are most excited about for UCS 2023. Be sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and always show up to the Rayquaza fight. Peace out.